Hey everyone, we are excited to welcome you to yet another episode for What the Tech is Product Management. I am Shruti, as you all know, and we have a very special guest joining from Snowflake. His name is Jan. But let's start with a quick round of introductions from Nishant, and then we'll pass it over to Jan.
Hey, I'm Nishant. I'm a product manager at Walmart Connect, and let's hear from Jan.
Yes, hello. So thank you for the invite. My name is Jan Sommerfeld. I'm in Berlin right now, so I'm in Germany working for Snowflake as a product manager for data pipeline observability.
Amazing. And we are so glad to host you, Jan. So to begin with, Jan, we would love to hear about your journey around like how did you land into product management? What did you do initially? And what made you think that you want to go into product management?
Yeah. I think it was an unexpected journey for me. So I actually started in design. So I got my first degree in interior design, and that included product management for physical products. So I was kind of a product manager already over 10 years ago, but that was more for furniture and lighting, like very physical objects. And so from there, I think I took a lot of things that are very similar in the physical product and software product world, especially when it comes to user testing and discovery. And but there are also some things that are completely different. So you cannot deliver incremental. You have to fully build it and then sell it, and you cannot change it later. But yeah, at this point, I had no idea about software development. I didn't work with engineers. It all was super far away from me. So then from there, I got a master's degree in product management and design. So again, that was for physical products and more around supply chain and how to build physical prototypes and about materials and all of these things. And still, the focus was more on the product designer role, actually. And so from there, I went into marketing and into corporate consulting. And so a lot of things that also had nothing to do with software engineering or building software products. And it was actually a very close friend of mine who was working as a product manager at that point. And so I was just curious, like, oh, what do you do all day? And he like told me a little bit about the daily work with the designers, with engineers, with customers, and building products. And in that case, it was a mobile app, so I could even see the result, what he was working on. And that was super fascinating to me. And it spoke to both my passion for design, but also my curiosity for technology. And so I was really interested to go into that space.
That's awesome. And I can actually, say that Jan is very design first, even when we meet in office, like his approach. So he knows the nitty gritty of, how a customer would interact, probably because he has that design first mentality, which is very key to, becoming a product manager. You are actually designing for the customer experience.
I had a question for you, Jan. Like, as you made that shift, I'm sure like you embraced design as your biggest weapon, right, to add value to the product. But as you ramped up on the software side, which was new to your world, how do you go about it? And there's imposter syndrome, there's like all this, okay, I don't know what I'm talking, I don't know what I'm doing. So how did you beat those demons, and how did you get around the software landscape?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think that's I had a lot of respect for all the engineering complexity, and it was really like a mystery to me in the beginning. I think the good thing in my case was that I started very small, so I didn't jump right into some big software company, but in our agency here, we had a small in-house developer team. So I was working closely with 3-4 engineers that were building very small products that we were selling to customers. So it was a very small scope and probably not all the best practices that you would have in major companies. But like these small products and small teams, I think are best way to learn to actually get a new product from idea to complete like delivery and support end to end. And so, yeah, I think I was learning in a small setup, and also with people that were very forgiving, and like, so some really nice like Italian developers that just tell you everything, and they're just like, yeah, sit down, I'm going to show you this, no problem, no stupid questions. So that helped a lot.
That's actually very interesting because small teams are more forgiving to your point because they're not measuring you by your efficiency like large companies do. They're measuring you by your breadth and volume of effort.
And that's
And
very similar to when we also started our product management journey. Like, Jan, when I remember joining Splunk and I had no clue about, what, like the end-to-end software functioning. And that's where, having that, couple of key engineering stakeholders who can work with you to get you onboarded, help you understand what does everything look like without that notion of asking, the dumb question, because nothing is dumb actually. Helps you start your journey in a much more robust way. So, crafting those relationships is actually important.
yeah, totally. And I think it's not just for like whatever you learn, if you're curious and humble and just go to people and be like, I don't have a clue, but I think you do. Can you please help me and explain me a few things? And then, yeah, I think you just have to be like daring to do that.
Yeah, completely agree. At the end of the day, like we are all building the product while we are, bringing the customer voice. It's not like, it shouldn't be a one-way relationship that we tell what to build. It should be like a mutual relationship to say that, okay, we are going to build this and this is why we are going to build it. Completely makes sense.
And speaking of Snowflake, yeah, like moving from design to software is one set of a challenge, but moving from like a B2C product where like design is much more valuable, I would say, to a enterprise solution like Snowflake or a Splunk or an Okta, for example, right? So how do you make the transition? Like, was it similar for you? Were there any unique challenges about B2B that you had to deal with?
Again, I think what helped me was the gradual transition, that I didn't have this super big jump into a different world.
Okay.
Starting from a small, my first jobs were all freelance jobs as designer, and then to a small agency, and then to a small startup, and then the startup is growing, and the teams are growing, and the processes are becoming more complex, and then coming to a company like Snowflake, that for me is huge and super advanced, and then you have other people that maybe come from a Google or Microsoft and say like, oh, this is all like super new and small. So I guess it's like, if you grow, like it helps, again, like start small and then you can go into bigger and bigger organizations without feeling overwhelmed.
Gotcha. So this was great. I really enjoyed learning about your career so far. So Shruti, do you want to move on to the next section?
Yeah, I think as Nishan mentioned, Jan, like we completely, understand your journey from where did you start as a designer and jumped into the product management. But for our viewers today, we also wanted to understand, as you transition into becoming a product manager, what are some of the core skill set that you developed and is very important for product manager to develop in order to become not just a product manager, but like a great product manager. So if you can like give us some, directions, that would be amazing for our viewers.
Okay. So first, I'm a bit hesitant if I can define what's a great product manager, but I can tell you what I'm aiming for. Let's put it that way. So I think the one thing that I learned that I consider probably most important is that you learn as much as you can about how the product works and how your customers work and what problems they have and what they need to solve. So I've seen product managers that just think about the process and how to do Scrum and how to do dailies, but that's not enough. I think you're not just a product manager that is like working through a project, but you really have to develop that domain knowledge of your customers and the industry that you're in, so that you know what questions to ask your customers, how to understand the answers of your customers, and just relate better to their life and their work and their problems and their goals. And I think that's something that takes time and is super hard, but it's, from my experience, the only way. Like, if you don't understand what they mean with the problems that they're telling you, then you cannot really empathize with them and you will not be able to build the right product. So
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like when I started my product management journey. I think one of the biggest challenges to not jump into, like, go to a customer call and they'll be like, "This is what I want you to build," right? And that
Yeah.
is not the point, right? Like because if you start inclining towards, okay, this is what customer has asked, and without asking the why are you asking this, I think that is the nuance that is really important for product, for being a great product manager, and the whole discovery aspect. Tell us more, Jan, like, what are some of the things that have helped you make this process better as you have graduated into becoming, like a more senior product manager? What are certain processes that have helped you?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I think finding, I mean, you need your team to work together, and you need to learn how you can work with the team that you have. And I think it's natural that it takes time that you find out how you best complement each other. So I'm a super strong believer and fan of the trio, which is like the PM and the designer and the tech lead, or the engineering lead. And I think that together is kind of a magical team where I can say everybody has their skills that complement each other to do something, and then you don't have to do the other part basically. So then you can challenge each other, and the designer is always thinking about what's the best overall experience, how does it fit in with the overall user journey, with the overall product, and the engineer can think about, okay, how complex is this? Can we deliver this? Any constraints? And as a PM, you think more about the strategy. Okay, where do we want to go long term? Is this the right direction? How can we incrementally deliver this in steps? So it's, I guess I would think about it as like if you have 3 dimensions, and like the designer is thinking really wide, and the PM is thinking like really far ahead, and the engineer is thinking really deep. And so if you take these 3 people together, then you have like this 360 view of where you are and where you need to go. And so I think you just have to figure out how to find a good balance between that, and how to complement each other. And so it's learning how to work together, but also you have to be lucky and find the right people.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think EPD is a concept that has been, really been trending in the industry for last 4 to 5 years, where, you have the right counterparts. And as we mentioned in the call before, it doesn't take like a PM to build a product, it takes a team to build a product. Amazing. Tell us more about the customer discovery process, Jan. Like, how do you discover customers? How do you discover pain points? And some gotchas there.
So I would probably depends on your product or your company, but in general, I would think it's probably 50% of the work is discovery and 50% of the part is delivery. And I don't know, I would suspect that PMs from an engineering background are maybe more familiar with the delivery part and stronger there. And as someone coming from a design background, I felt more comfortable on the whole discovery part, because this is what I learned and did for years as a designer, to talk to people and understand what they need and show them some ideas and hear their feedback. So I really enjoy that part. And so I think then if you dive deeper into what makes a good product discovery, I think it's definitely talking to users as much as you can. That's the obvious one that everybody talks about.
Let me quickly interject.
Yeah.
So let's probably define what is product discovery for some of the folks who are new.
Oh yeah,
As well, right? So if in your terms, what do you think product discovery is, and then we can go a little bit deeper.
Yes,
Sorry.
of course. I would just simply put it as like product discovery is building the right things, and product delivery is building things right. So first you have to figure out what is it that we want to do, so that you don't invest in something and have like the designers and engineers being super busy doing something that in the end is not the right product. There's still some risk, but basically you're trying to build up confidence that the thing that you're planning to do is actually solving the problem. And that's the whole discovery part.
Got it. Fair enough. All right. Yeah. this is in line with how we think about discovery as well. It's everything that we do to understand what is the right thing to build to address the biggest pain point in the market, or like a bunch of pain points in the market. Sometimes people are forced to solve it for a single huge customer that pays your bill. Or in other cases, you're thinking, okay, how can I get into a new market fit? Or how can I address the problem with the most number of people in my platform at the moment, right? So thanks for defining. Yeah.
And I
Let's
think
go to the discovery part. Like, I would love to hear, like, how do you go about discovery coming from the design world?
so. Like I said, I think one part is definitely you have to talk with the customers to understand what their expectations are, what things are they doing now. Do they work manually because they don't have a software product to solve their problem? Do they have other software products that they're used to? The whole context about it, like what do they do before? What do they do after using the tool? But I guess the one thing that I learned early that I would give as advice, I guess, is there's also a big part that is just do your homework, like read about everything, try everything, do your research, and don't rely on like your poor customer to spend hours explaining you how the world works. So I think that's always like go and ask people, but come prepared. And if there's something that you can read a book about, that you can Google on a website, that you can try out with a trial account of something else or so, like educate yourself first. To be sure that you have a solid foundation, and then you can go into these customer conversations and be like, okay, I know like how this works in general, but now tell me more. Tell me specifically for your company. Tell me specifically for your project that I'm working on to go from there. I think that's also kind of a sign of respect for your customers, because I also had customers that were like, hey, I'm spending 2 hours every week telling you how the world works. Just look it up. And I was super embarrassed, and I felt like, oh, okay, I should really like do my homework. I cannot expect from a CTO of another company to tell me how real estate industry works. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, makes sense. And also, yeah, like it would be great if you can touch upon the POC aspects, right? Like that you've been doing at Snowflake. Like that is one way to validate, some of your ideas quickly, and like in a quick and dirty fashion is a way to say.
Yes. So I think you have different options to choose from, and I would think the ultimate goal is what is the fastest way to get to this point of clarity where like, okay, now I have a really high confidence that this is what we should build and that this will solve the problem. And so I guess to get there, in some cases or in general, I think we really like to use mock-ups to just sit down with a designer and say, okay, let's just prototype this journey of someone, I don't know, debugging a data pipeline. How does that start? Okay, I need some alert, and then I see, oh, something is broken, and then from there, where do you go? What's the first landing page? And then how do you drill down into the problem? How do you identify the blast radius of this failure? How many steps does it take you to find the root cause? And then how do you deploy the fix? How do you test the fix? And think about this journey. Talk with customers that you really understand that journey, so to be sure that this is really how they work and not just like my assumption of the world. And then we basically try to translate that into either like very low fidelity sketches or some click dummy that we can show people and be like, okay, now I give this to you, and let's see if you can navigate that and if that solves your problem. And I think that's really useful if you have the design resources in your team to build that out. But we also had moments where we said, okay, well, actually, maybe there are so many different edge cases and scenarios with the customer data set that can be totally different, or the setup that they have that can be totally different from our mockup. It would take days and weeks to just mock all of this up to reflect the real reality, to have that real scenario feeling for the customer, that it was actually faster to go to an engineer and say, can you just prototype this thing for me? Like, it doesn't have to be stable. It doesn't have to be super performant. And we did some like wild things just on the front end with some SQL just to have that behavior, that flow that we want to test. And we knew that this is super far away from actually shipping it to production. Mm-hmm. But it was something that we could give into customers' hands and they could just experience it with their own account, with their own data set, and be like, yeah, well, all the setup that I have, like the way that I organize my database, doesn't work at all. We would have never known this from design, because they would probably click through it and say, yeah, it looks nice, it works. But so I think you have different options to either mock it up on the design side, or build a prototype on the engineering side, or sometimes maybe just even do storytelling and talk with people about stories and see if it resonates with them, if they are engaged and feel like, yeah, this is exactly my pain point, or if they just look at you and are like, oh, you don't understand me at all. So I think these are like different things that you can do at different points on that journey.
I'm going to add the fact that the amount of effort you might be able to convince the team to put into a feature will depend on the size of the feature or the product. Like, let's say it's a big launch, like a tier 1 launch. I'm sure we're able to get teams to work towards like a POC or like a quick environment that people can play with, get a sense for, and then give feedback. And many other cases that I go through on a daily basis, it's like, okay, small features, but I would still love some feedback. That's when I would go the route of like a mock and see how people react. But with the pinch of salt that, okay, when we miss the context, people are listening to our story and they're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Yep. Only when there are like huge gaps, they pop out. Or like when you have a really intuitive customer, they're able to come back and tell you, okay, here is where I feel like there's a gap, right? But in most cases, they're like just looking at your story and yeah, this makes sense, makes right? Sense. But when you start playing with it, that's when the real problem comes in. So it's like, I love Jan's reference to getting to a higher level of confidence, and that's the route every product manager has to be heading in. I call it de-risking. So at any given point, we know limited information. We are trying to gather insights. We're trying to gather feedback. So all of that will move us toward like mocks at some point, POCs, at some point alphas, eventually betas, and eventually GAs.
Yep. I mean, the idea is that if you want to fail, you have to fail early rather than failing after you have built a product, because, you're betting on something which involves a lot of engineering resources. And, our struggle is that there's always project A, but there is also project B, C, D that needs to happen. So where do we actually bet our energy and resourcing on? Yeah.
From a physical product world, in terms of discovery, like how was it in that world? Yeah, like I mean, when you were thinking of, I don't know what you designed. I for some reason was imagining sofas all the while you were saying physical products. I don't know why, but what were you working on back then?
In my case, it was furniture mostly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, see, I was close. Okay, cool. So from a furniture standpoint, what do you do in terms of discovery? Were you asking folks to like sit on this and tell me, okay, how you feel about it, or like how did you manage the context of a living room? Because sitting in the store for me has always been like, yeah, it's good, but only when I start sitting on it for like 6 hours, 12 hours, that's when I'm like, okay, this is actually bad. I didn't realize what I was signing up for, right? So how do you deal with that uncertainty?
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest, I was also very early in my career. I wouldn't say I was a super experienced, tenured like product designer doing the best chairs and things. So I cannot claim that by any means. But of course, you build physical prototypes. So for example, when you build a lamp, then you want to see, okay, where is the source of light and how is it reflected and how does it spread and does it create the atmosphere that I want to create? And so you do, I mean, now you do computer renderings. At that time, computer renderings were pretty slow. So it was actually faster to build a physical product and just basically take some styrofoam or take some pieces of wood and just get the shape and the size and how does it feel to sit underneath, and you show it to some people. I think in my case, it was even easier because it was not a mass market product where you have to please, I don't know, 500,000 people shopping at IKEA, but it was just custom pieces for individual people that requested that one custom piece. So if that one customer loves it, well, that's good.
That's good. That's good to know. I'm not sure if this will make the cut, but I thought it's pretty interesting that you come from the hardware world.
I mean, Jan at that time was also doing POCs. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions, Nishan?
So I know we typically ask like a book or something, right? Like what do product managers do? What is one thing you like? But I think what will be interesting from a designer's perspective, Jan, is like what is one favorite product out in the market? Anything that you ever saw and you felt like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Obviously, don't give me the iPhones of the way. Like I don't know if you like it, but I know there are aspects of it that are pretty obvious to people. But are there products that you feel like that were built well but don't get the same kind of recognition because it's so seamless?
Yeah, that's exactly the hard part, right? So when it's really good, you don't notice it, and it sounds like super cheesy, but that's so true. So I well, I think that there are some things where I just appreciate the attention to detail, and it's not just Apple, but for me, it's more Airbnb, where I think, okay, I don't know how much they spend on designers, but it seems like it's just designers' paradise, where like everything just feels so fluid, and you interact with a map, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is exactly the thing that I wanted to click at. Whereas in other products, you have to click 3 times to be like, no, I didn't want this, I want that. So it's, I think this is something that makes it a more joyful experience. But I think I just yesterday read a quote from one of our colleagues, Rudy, who explained that if you value design, then you show that you have an attention to detail, and that is not just on the visual surface, but that shows that you care also about what you do anywhere in your product. And I think that can also define a brand, that can define your reputation. And if you want to convince customers that you're taking really good care of their data, then maybe just start on the surface and show them that you take really good care of what it is that they can see and that they can evaluate, and then convince them that this is how you build your entire product. So I think that's always great to see.
And by the way, Airbnb is my favorite product too. Like it's, as you mentioned, very seamless, very design first, very customer experience heavy.
It's lively, right? Like they do those subtle things very well. Like when you go into the platform, it's easy on the eye, first of all, but everything is there where it's supposed to be. And I think Brian Jeske is the guy who came up with this idea of like the ideal experience where like level 1 is something basic, like where you have what you have today. But here's like level X would be where you get out of a flight, there's like people cheering you, you're walking on the red carpet, you get into a limo, you come into your Airbnb experience, you have all this personalized personal catering for you, right? So that's his ideal end goal. So that's what he says, like this is the Airbnb experience at level 20, for example. So to be able to think in terms of these milestones like moonshots and Mars shots, I don't know, I think will keep us always
Striving for better.
Yeah, it's almost like we push for the best even when we are going for the smaller ones, because we know like we're not doing our best, to be honest. The best is like so far away, you can convince your teams to go a little bit further.
Yeah, I
I
think
would say,
sometimes we get like so much into the nitty-gritty of designing the product with what we have today that we forget what it can be. So
Yeah.
you were saying something.
so I just wanted to add, I think the risk is that you get so in love with the idea of adding more things that you forget that it's actually more valuable to take things out. So I think that some of the best UX experience that I see is that things just work, and I don't even have to go to that page. I don't even have to make any selections. It's just done automatically. So whenever you can do this, I mean, Apple Pay is great because it takes away 5 annoying steps that I would have to do on some other flow. So instead of trying to make the page nice or some animations or whatever, just try to get rid of it completely. And then it's these things that people don't notice, and they will probably not call them out because they don't remember them, but it's great. They shouldn't remember. Nobody should remember a checkout process. Yeah. So I think this is what we're also aiming for with our team, to just kind of hide all the complexity and the annoying things, and try to just simplify the product as much as we can.
I have a really funny story about this. Just yesterday, my wife has like a Pixel, and they have this weird UI where when you start tapping in the numbers, there's I think it's a triangle or a star. There's something different that they did about it. Usually it's just like dots, right? Circles. I don't need to see anything fancy. And they decided to add triangles over there. And now I see it and I can't unsee it. I'm like, okay, who in the world approved this feature? Why did someone think that changing a circle to a triangle is like a great idea, right? It just bothers me so much. But those are the things that we talk about, right? Like some things work, let them be. Some things don't work. Sometimes the answer is to remove things, not add more things.
What is one challenge about being a PM?
Well, I think the challenge is definitely if you're a PM, you cannot be a designer, and you shouldn't be. So there's someone else in that seat, and they should be. So I just sometimes it's the temptation of like, oh, if I would be a designer, if I would think about it from this perspective. So I'm sometimes have to apologize to the designers I work with. But I think that the great thing is to oh, it sounds so stupid simple, but it's just to create something out of nothing. I still find it absolutely magical when you say, okay, there was nothing before, and then we had a bunch of discussions and was like working our ass off for weeks, and now there is something that is really useful. And this is still something that I think that's so hard in the physical world. It takes so long and it's so complicated. And here it's just so like you get rewarded with something tangible, like quote tangible, every week, and you don't have to wait for 2 years until something rolls off the production line and is packaged and so on. But you have this like almost instant gratification of, I had this idea, let's test it, see if it works. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Try something else. And so that kind of gives you new motivation every week or so. And so I think these like feedback cycles are short, and the shorter you keep them, the more fun it is to actually like go really fast.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
And we are right on time. Thank you, Jan, for taking the time. This was absolutely amazing.